power wasn't enough. The throne, the armies, the adoration of 1,000,000 souls, it was all meaningless theatre. For the emperor who awoke one morning and declared himself a god, the entire world was merely a prop. The public temples were for lies. The Senate was for puppets. But in the heart of Rome, behind walls guarded by men sworn to silence, Caligula built his truth, a private temple, not dedicated to a god, but to himself. This is where the emperor's divine madness wasn't a rumor. It was a ritual. This is where Rome's most powerful man conducted ceremonies so depraved they were buried by history itself. We now descend past the guards, beyond the sane world, to uncover the 7 most twisted rituals from Caligula's private temple. Before we reveal the first blasphemous rite, subscribe to Abandoned Historians to uncover the stories that time tried to erase. The Palatine Hill was not enough. The Roman Forum was a stage for the common rabble. For an emperor who believed his shadow could cure diseases, a new sanctuary was required, one untouched by the stale prayers of mortals, a place where divinity could be performed, not just petitioned. And so Caligula consecrated his most intimate space. Within its marble walls, shielded from the judgment of history, the line between imperial cult and personal psychosis didn't just blur. It was systematically erased. This was not the madness of a chaotic mind, but the chilling, calculated theatre of a man who refashioned the world as his own private altar. Number 1. The dialogue with the moon. The temple was designed with a specific open-air chamber. Here, beneath the cold gaze of the lunar orb, Caligula would perform his most solitary ritual. He would stand, draped in the robes of a woman, and extend his arms, not in prayer, but in invitation. For hours he would whisper, then shout, then listen to the silence, engaged in what his courtiers were forced to describe as a sacred conversation with the goddess of the moon, his celestial bride. He was not a man seeking a god. He was a god courting his equal. The ritual was a performance of absolute, solipsistic loneliness, a declaration that even the cosmos was his to command and seduce. Number 2. The Consul of the Stable. It began as a joke, a piece of political theatre to humiliate the Senate. But within the temple it became a sacred rite. His favorite horse, Incitatus, was not merely housed in a marble stall. The horse was a priest in this new religion. Caligula would host full, state-sanctioned banquets in the temple, with senators forced to attend. They were made to don their formal togas and recite vows of loyalty not to the emperor but to the horse. They would toast to the animal's health while it stood adorned with a jeweled collar, a living, breathing mockery of their entire political order. This was not just an insult, it was a ritualized dismantling of meaning itself. Number 3. The god's theft. No god could tolerate rivals. Caligula ordered the systematic looting of the most revered temples in Greece, but this was not simple plunder. The statues of Zeus, Apollo, and Ares were not melted down for coin. They were brought to his private temple and beheaded. With meticulous care, craftsmen would then sculpt his own likeness onto the divine bodies of the gods. The ritual was one of violent replacement. He was not destroying the old gods, he was consuming them, wearing their sanctified bodies as a hermit crab wears a stolen shell, proclaiming that their power was now his flesh. Number 4. The lottery of torture. The air in the temple was thick, with the smell of roasted meat, spiced wine, and the cloying scent of fear. During the lavish feasts, when his guests were at their most vulnerable, flushed with wine, stomachs full, their guards lowered in a false sense of security, Caligula would signal for the game to begin. A large, ornately carved wooden wheel was brought forth and placed upright in the center of the room. Its segments were not painted with numbers, but with vivid miniature scenes of suffering, each a masterpiece of miniature art depicting a specific, gruesome death. A man engulfed in flames, another being methodically dismembered, a third torn apart by leopards. The emperor, with a theatrical sigh of boredom, would invite a trembling senator to step forward and give the wheel a spin. The room would fall into a dead silence, broken only by the rhythmic, clicking spin of the wheel of fortune, a sound that echoed like a death knell. As it slowed, Every eye would be fixed on the passing horrors, each man calculating his own wealth, his influence, his family name, wondering if any of it could save him now. When the wheel finally shuddered to a halt, Caligula would lean forward, a connoisseur appreciating a fine wine, and softly name the fate. The crosses. How traditional. The chosen guest, whether a powerful consul or a wealthy equestrian, would be seized by the Praetorians without a word. There was no trial, no appeal. The ritual was the law. The banquet would then resume, the forced laughter and chatter of the survivors, now underscored by the distant but unmistakable screams from the temple's courtyard, a symphony of agony composed for a single divine listener. Number 5. The sacred marriage to Drusilla. His obsession with his sister Drusilla did not end with her death. It was there that it truly began its transformation into something beyond necrophilia, into a full-blown state religion of one. Upon her passing, he had the Senate officially deify her, but in his private temple he went much, much further. He commissioned a life-sized statue of her, carved from the purest Pentelic marble, its features so lifelike it was said a vein throbbed in its neck. This was not a memorial. It was a shrine to Panthea, the all-goddess Drusilla. He would dress the statue in silks and jewels, place it on a throne beside his own at temple feasts, and order his most trusted freedman to serve it first, offering morsels of food and cups of wine to its cold, unresponsive lips. The most sacred ritual, however, was performed in the inner sanctum, a room no one else was permitted to enter. There, by flickering lamplight, he would lay beside the statue, whispering state secrets, political plans, and vile confessions into its unhearing ear. The ultimate act of this devotion, the ritual that sealed their divine union, was one he performed alone. It was whispered by the palace servants in tones of ultimate horror that he would consummate this marriage, coupling with the cold, rigid stone, attempting to impregnate the divine with his own mortal, or so he believed, seed. This was the most profound perversion, a sacrament of absolute solitude, an attempt to force a response from the void, to bend the finality of death itself through the sheer terrifying force of his own narcissistic will. Number 6. The Bridge of Ships. The Bay of Baiae, the playground of Rome's elite, was to become the site of his most spectacular ritual of domination. Caligula's quarrel was not with a man or an army, but with the sea god, Neptune himself. He declared the ocean a rival, and his response was one of sublime, world-altering arrogance. He commanded that every commercial ship, every grain transporter, every vessel from hundreds of miles of coastline be seized and brought to the bay. For weeks, the water was a chaos of wood and rope, as thousands of ships were lashed together, deck to deck, creating a floating, unstable roadway over 2 miles long. This was not for military logistics, it was for a single divine procession. When the bridge was complete, Caligula emerged. He was not dressed as a Roman emperor, but in the gilded armor of Alexander the Great, a hero he believed he had surpassed. He mounted a war chariot, and with the thunder of hooves that echoed across the water, he charged. The bridge groaned and shuddered beneath him, waves sloshing over the planking, the entire insane structure threatening to collapse into the deep. He rode from Baiae to the neighboring port of Puteoli, and back not once but repeatedly, for 2 full days. He was conquering the sea, trampling the domain of a god beneath the wheels of his chariot. At the apex of this performance, he ordered a lavish banquet to be set up on the central span of the ship bridge. Couches and tables were placed on the heaving, salt-sprayed decks. He and his court feasted in the middle of the sea, a display of power so absolute it could temporarily suspend the very logic of the world. He then concluded the ritual with one final blasphemy. He had his soldiers rush into the waves, not to fight, but to collect seashells as spoils of war from the ocean, declaring a triumphant victory over a defeated foe that did not exist. It was the ultimate ritual of a man who believed reality itself was a substance to be molded by his command. Which of these rituals reveals the most about the nature of absolute power? Let us know in the comments. And if you believe that the darkest chapters of history are those written in private, subscribe to Abandoned Historians, because some truths are only found in the shadows.